The BMW M2 is an incredibly important vehicle. In theory, BMW is still an enthusiast brand, and the outgoing M2 was the smallest, most agile car they made. The two-box, manual shift, inline-six powered hot rod that stuck closest to the Bavarian automaker's roots as they discovered newer and more plentiful ways to build SUVs. It looked fantastic, it went like hell, and even though CS stood for comically expensive, that special edition was one of my favorite cars of the last few years. Then BMW gave me a reason to be nervous. They redesigned the 2 Series from the ground up, and it looked a little awkward. The round parts and the square parts didn't really fit together so well. Sure, it was a nice place to be inside, and both variants drove objectively well, but I literally wasn't quite sold. Now, what would happen when they M'd it up? You get this, the all-new M2. No, they haven't forgotten to take the extra cladding off the prototypes. It really does look like this. You might think different, and that's okay, but we think it looks really, really weird. Looks weird. When a car doesn't look right, you'll always find yourself having to explain to people why you bought it. My dad bought a first-generation Cayenne Turbo, which was a weird-looking car when it first came out, and no one understood why he got it, so I took them out on the highway and tripled the speed limit. They understood. See, I had to do some pretty risky things to show people that that was a good car. When a car is pretty, everyone else is safer. But if it's going to be ugly, it better be fast.
Fortunately, it is fast. Oh! With this 8-speed transmission, it will do 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds. It pulls, and those shifts are imperceptible. Imperceptibly quick. The engine now makes 453 horsepower, which is 48 more than the last car. The torque number has stayed the same, 406 pound-feet, but it is a flat table from 2,600 to 5,800 RPMs. If you get the optional M driver's pack, the top speed is raised to 177 miles per hour. That electronic limiter will grab you like a parent grabbing a 5-year-old before they head into traffic. It will be aggressive, and without it, you'd keep going.
Hey everyone, I would like to give a shout out to Betterhelp for sponsoring today's BMW M2 review. And if you've never heard of Betterhelp, you really should listen to this because Betterhelp is the world's largest therapy service and it's 100% online. I have been in therapy for about 20 years, and one of the hardest things for me about going to therapy, at least in the beginning, was finding the right therapist. Where do you even look? Do you ask your friends? Do you ask your family? Not everybody can do that. That's why BetterHelp is so great. With BetterHelp, you can tap into a network of over 25,000 licensed and experienced therapists who can help you with a wide range of issues, whether it's anxiety, depression, substance abuse, overeating, getting through a tough time in your life, someone dies in the family and you want to talk it out. Whatever it is, BetterHelp can help. Now, to get started, you just go to their website and answer a few questions about your needs and your preferences for a therapist. That way, they can match you up with the right person from their therapist network. Then you can talk to that therapist however you feel comfortable, whether it's text, phone chat, video conferencing, or you can message your therapist at any time and schedule live sessions when it's convenient for you. And if your therapist isn't the right fit for any reason, which can totally happen, then you can switch to a new therapist at no additional charge. With BetterHelp, you get the same level of professionalism and quality that you get from an in-person therapist, but with a therapist who is custom picked for you. You get more scheduling flexibility and it's a more affordable price. So hit the link in the video description or go to betterhelp.com/smokingtire and get 10% off your first month. And thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring today's M2 video. The thing is, like me over the last couple of years, the M2 has put on some weight. It grew by 239 pounds from last generation to this, for a curb weight of 3,867 pounds, only about 40 pounds lighter than the M4 competition with all-wheel drive. How did it get so heavy?
It's simply bigger than before. It's 4 inches longer than the last car and 1.5 inches wider. And it's not just because of the growths. They've lengthened the wheelbase, they've widened the track. You could actually fit an E92 M3 inside the body of this car and you'd still have room on the sides. Now, the longer wheelbase means it's more stable and you actually feel the bumps less as you go over them. And then the wider track means it's even more agile in corners like this. Slaloming has never been so easy. The wheels got a little bit heavier as well. There's 20s in the back instead of the 19s from the last car. To be fair, BMW has balanced the weight nearly perfectly, 50-50 front and rear. But like a mule headed to Ibiza, most of the weight comes from what they put inside the body. It has adaptive dampers now and an active differential. The M-specific chassis bracing increases rigidity, all contributing to the precise handling abilities of this car. You now have different settings for the brake pedal feel and the variable ratio steering. The new seats have more lateral bolstering and thigh support, and in front of you is a monstrous, curved, dual-screen display covered in icons that control everything from the suspension settings to throttle response, even voice-controlled windows.
It looks like an Android tablet. All the icons look kind of the same, and they're not organized particularly well. Yes, you can make shortcuts to your most frequently used apps, but still, the layout is very, very uniform and tough to find what you're looking for while you're driving unless you've had the foresight to make a hotkey for it.
Yes, there are a lot of apps and icons when you pull up the main screen. There are 24 of them. It looks like your dad's desktop on his PC. But there's a couple of shortcuts. You can go to infotainment apps here, and it presents all the things you would need for that. But some of the things are built on convenience, like the automated window programming. That uses GPS to detect where you are, and then it will automatically roll your window down. That'll make it a little bit easier and more convenient to get your morning ticket on the way to work.
Apps aside, some of the tech is very helpful. It's got torque vectoring and brake vectoring to help manage the weight and the power, of which there is plenty of both. And it's also got a suite of new passive driver safety systems in case you happen to be terrible at driving. I, of course, turned them all off the first day because they are annoying. The power is explosive, and in a lot of ways can easily overwhelm the rear tires, especially today where the road is cold, bumpy, tight, and it rained yesterday, so it's damp in places. That M dynamic mode traction control, I can feel it kicking in coming out of nearly every corner. Whoa! It's not slow, kids. It is not slow. But this is definitely too much car for this road. Unfortunately, all of our very big, very fast favorite roads where I would love to drive this car are still snowed in or caved in. On a tight, technical road like this, the M2 is an insane amount of car. It's agile, but it's an agile animal. You gotta be ready if you're gonna turn the traction control off, because it will move, and that torque comes on early and hard. Thankfully, when Zack set up our M modes, he left my traction control turned on, I think.
Like any modern M car, we have the programmable M modes, which are activated by the 2 buttons on the steering wheel. I love that, by the way. Great functionality. M1, I set up for Matt. The engine in Sport Plus, which is full. Transmission in S1, slightly gentler on the shifts, which is good. On this cold morning, when we had it set to S3, as they call it, the shifts were so hard it would break traction between second and third. Steering comfort, as I said, I prefer it. And then the brakes in Sport, a little bit more reactive. You don't have to go as deep into the pedal. DSC, I set to MDM. We want to keep it on here. We don't want to go full off. It's a public road. It's also wet and cold. Now, I like things to be a little bit more aggressive than that. So I have the transmission set to S3 and the chassis set to Sport. It will definitely be a little bit more reactive and communicative over this imperfect road. My M mode is a lot more dynamic. Wheel spin, wheel spin. So much torque. Steering is EPS, of course, and it is adjustable. There's a comfort setting and a sport setting. The sport setting adds weight to it and a little bit of feedback. I have to say, I actually prefer the comfort setting. It keeps the light steering that I loved so much about the 230i without having that sort of, I don't know, fakeness that has become really prevalent in electronic systems. The really good electronic steering systems truly transmit information from the front wheels. The ones that are just okay do an impression of it. Like I can't really feel the front wheels of the car. I actually feel their grip more through the floor of the vehicle and the little vibrations that come through that than through my fingertips. And that's a bummer.
Even though the torque number is the same as the last M2, it's just a reminder that 406 pound-feet of torque at low RPM is a ton. And the funny thing is, it's got that big torque, but it builds from there. 453 horsepower.
So it drives pretty well, and that's a good thing. But has BMW gone too far with the tech? Is it important that you can open and close the windows or set the temperature using your voice? Do we need the M2 to have a mobile hotspot that 10 devices can connect to?
This car barely fits 4 people. 2.5 devices per person? Really redefining the term remote work if we're having Zoom meetings through an M2, huh?
Speaking of work, the stiffer shocks were keeping me busy.
Now the chassis is in sport mode. It's a little bit bouncier for sure, but man, when the corner is good and the road is smooth, there's so much grip, so much grip. This thing has so much technology, as evidenced by the screen in front of me. I mean, you have wheel sensors and speed sensors and yaw sensors and shock sensors and the adaptive things and this and that, and now you also have the e-diff. The e-diff monitors slip at both wheels, perfectly distributing power and torque when needed, where needed. It does drive really well. The alignment's really nice. The front end is absolutely more responsive than the last one. And I really liked the last car, but I can feel that they have just turned up that energy a little bit. You know, so they've stiffened that whole front subframe, and it all means that there's less flex in the front. It transmits more of the work to the suspension, which is what you want from a really good sports car.
We knew with the M240 that BMW could build a fast 2 Series, so that this one goes even faster is not the least bit shocking. Fully mobs. Here's the thing about the M2. It is weird looking, but I feel like I might be able to get over it. It drives really well, it's really comfortable, it's really versatile, and on the street, as a daily driver, in the city, in traffic, it does a pretty good impression of a luxury car as well. The adaptive suspension is smooth. The inputs are easy. It's not jerky. The Harman Kardon stereo is good. And so, if I ask, could I get over the styling if the other things about the M2 are good enough, I have to admit that I feel like I could. And you never know. That 04 Cayenne Turbo was ugly when it was new, but now it's just kind of the default.
BMW said that the front-end design is necessary to maximize cooling for such a high-performance car. But the Supra has nearly the same engine and doesn't look like it's wearing 2 loading docks on its chin. The M3 used to be the do-everything enthusiast coupe. That car got a little bit too big. So is the M2 still that car? Is it still the magical vehicle that the last one was? In terms of driving, yes. In terms of interior comfort, yes. But I couldn't walk out of my door every day and look at it.
The naming may have changed, but we've come to the conclusion that today's M2 continues the heritage of the E36, E46, and E92 M3 coupes in terms of size, shape, and dynamics, if not style. The fact that it still comes with a stick is a huge bonus and puts it in a class of its own. The Mustang will never be a true luxury car. The Camaro is dying this year, and the only other fast manual cars with usable back seats are hot hatches or larger sedans like the M3 or CT4 Blackwing. Whether or not you can live with BMW's new styling is up to you, but we'll just say this: at least you don't have to see it while you're driving it. And remember, always fight your tickets. Use code TST10 on the Off the Record app available in the Android and iOS store, or go to offtherecord.com/TST.